Mm.
On our understanding of what the village owned and where we could work, we put a drawing together for three general cross sections of the road, because there are three very specific areas where the cross sections are different based on what was done out there. Mel, if you could do the one that says no median. The upper drawing is a cross section of the road. The north side of the road is on the left and the south side of the road is on the right. So you're essentially looking downhill. You'll see that beyond the limits of the asphalt, the village does own property on both sides. Our proposal is that on the south side of the road, we're going to install a curb up against the edge of the asphalt. And from the back of the curb up to the property line, we're going to install a layer of gravel and a layer of crusher fines. If anybody wants to, I brought refreshments. These are gravel and crusher fines. If you want to see the way the crusher fines look, the village's grower market, that parking lot is built with crusher fines. The benefit of them is if there's ever a problem, if someone spins a tire or there's an accident or whatever, Public Works can go out with a front end loader, they just grade it out. It comes right back. It's not as if it's paved and they have to get a paving machine and cut asphalt, et cetera, et cetera. On the north side of the road, again, we're proposing a curb, and that little detail just below the drawing, as an example, it says concrete barrier curb. That's the curb that's going up against the asphalt. At the back of the curb, we're going to install a 5-foot wide paved pedestrian access route. It's only 5 feet wide. This is on the north side. It would be north of the new curb we're installing. And from the back of that curb, we then grade back onto the property lines. This is, sure.
Well, it's fine and dandy on level on both sides of the road there. I live at the top of the hill there on Meadowlark. In my driveway.
Sir, can you, sir, can you hold on a second? Can you talk into the microphone so people can hear you on Zoom?
Well, if you wait a minute, we have two other cross sections.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Okay? If you could, Mel, if you could give me the one that says median. There are a couple of areas out there where the village, actually the paving job, installed those medians down the middle of the road. So essentially, they pushed the asphalt width further out. But based on most of the street, we can still do what we propose to do. We're going to put a curb on the south side, gravel and crusher fines out to the property line. The north side gets that little curb and a 5-foot pathway, and then we can blend back in.
That's gonna deviate.
When it comes to those medians, everything will just follow the edge of the asphalt around, but there'll be a curb there. So if you're walking there, less likely you're going to get hit. All right, Mel, if you could please give me the one that says slope. The very top of the hill on the right-hand side. I've got about 200 feet where the current slope from the edge of the asphalt is not relatively level. It is relatively steep. We took a couple of shots on that when they had the surveyor out there. It's about a 1-on-4. It actually goes up about at least 6 feet in the 20 some odd feet of shoulder area. So what we are proposing in that area, on the south side, we're going to do the same thing because south side is pretty much flat. We'll make that work. On the north side, we're going to put in a curb. We're going to put in that 5-foot wide asphalt path. And then if I can't comfortably blend back in to that steep slope, we're going to have some kind of shoulder stabilization. We haven't decided whether we're going to do it with, I don't know if you're familiar with gabions. Gabion, it's like a wire mesh cage that they fill with heavy rock. And they just run it along the edge of the road and it comes up above the pathway and it blends then back into that slope. It's not going to be as easy as that little drawing makes it look because it is pretty steep coming back off the edge of the road. But don't forget, this is only, as an example, it's between the driveways. We would not be touching people's driveways. The existing driveways where you are now is where you're going to be elevation-wise where you are right now. We're not changing anything. Mel, if you could give me the curb, full header. This is a standard New Mexico Department of Transportation drawing. I love using their standards because then nobody can tell me I made things up. If you look up at the right-hand drawing, you'll see they show a curb, which I've highlighted, but it came out dark. And right behind it is a sidewalk. That's what we're doing, except it's not really going to be a sidewalk, which you might expect to be 12 or 15 feet wide. It's only going to be 5 feet wide. As we come to every driveway on the north side, we're going to taper down, give everybody what's called a header curb, which is concrete, and it's about 18 inches wide, but it's flat. So it butts up against the asphalt, comes back 18 inches, it matches the rest of the back of the curb, and then it slopes back into your driveway. If your driveway goes down, it's not going to make any difference. If your driveway goes up, it's not going to make any difference. It's going to blend in, but if you look along the edge of the street, you'll see it a nice, smooth concrete curb floating around. On the south side, I have a bigger problem. If you look at the top drawing, because those driveways on the east end, those 5, they're 40-foot wide access points. So we haven't decided whether we're going to do a 40-foot drop curb or some kind of a little 40-foot return like you might have at the corner of a street. I think we're gonna go with just a dropped curb. We think it'll look better and fit in better. Yes. Whatever drainage runs down the road at these driveways is gonna run out into the road. So the concern we have at this point is we don't quite know how we're going to do the wide driveways on the north. There are 3 driveways way at the north end, way at the west end on the south side. They also are relatively wide because those houses are way below. So if you go out there and you look, you'll see people have started to turn into their driveway 30 feet up towards Rio Rancho. The tire tracks really are wide. Also, when they come out, they pull way out so they can see to their left. So those dropped curbs also we have to be dropped for a longer area. We pretty much are at the point where we've done preliminary drawings. We still have to do a design for all of the individual locations for what's called a PAR, which is a pedestrian access route. That's, again, what the state calls the little pathway that we're putting in. We have to do some drawings for traffic control during construction. When the road was built, they had a lot of room to push people over. Once we start putting the curb in, you don't have that room anymore. You're locked in between a curb. We also have to do some erosion control drawings because when they start digging up all that dirt in order to put the concrete in and in order to put the path in, we need to control that. We're going to have a lot of signage that we will need during construction. Also after construction to let people know what you can and can't do on that. At the moment, I understand the village, we're at a good break point because we finished the preliminary work. The village is awaiting some funding they're going to be getting hopefully within the next couple of months, which will give us an opportunity to finalize design, which I'm guessing if we hear shortly, we'll have our design done by the end of the year and go to construction the beginning of 2025. I'm guessing that once they start out there making a mess, they will be there for at least 3 months because they have to work first the curb, then they got to come back with the asphalt. So they may start at one end and you'll see them working and then they'll work the way up and 500 feet later, they'll open up what's behind them, but it'll still be a mess in the middle. So the contractor's going to have to figure out a good schedule, not only for how he does his work, but also how he handles traffic. One of the things we're thinking about is a pilot car. If you've seen that, where the car says, follow me, they let traffic build up and then they go through. Our main concern with that is I don't want traffic backing out onto Loma Larga. Yes. We assume there's going to be traffic problems. We assume we're going to have to find a good way to deal with it. Our hope would be that people who just use it as a cut through within the first week are going to say, this is terrible. I can't get down the street. But often it doesn't happen. They do it anyway because they don't want to go down 528. We can't close the road any more than I say that I don't want to have traffic back up into Loma Larga. Mr. Mayor, Ron, did you want to say anything? If not, we'll take some questions.
Enough money to finish the project last legislative. We were given enough money in the last legislative session to finish this. This has been going on, gosh, you guys know more than I. Yeah, 20-something years, because I know it was going on, gosh, yeah, at least 24 years. So this will finish it. It won't be what most of us really envisioned, but it'll be done. and it'll be finished. It'll look nice. It'll be okay. We won't have to bother with somebody's line of sight on the south side. We won't have to invade anybody's property on the north side. It'll all be in village property. We can finally deal with the plants that are in the islands and, yeah, I know. Yes, sir.
Wait, if you have questions, please come up to a microphone because the people on Zoom won't be able to hear you and the recording won't have it either.
The cord doesn't reach that far. You have to come up here.
You want to give him that?
Oh, yeah, here, I'll do that. Yeah, let's do that.
The water drainage that's all those islands are for, is that actually gonna be hooked up? It was never hooked up.
Question, is it gonna get hooked up?
Yeah.
Yes, before we start.
We have to open it.
Yeah.
and get it-
Am I on? Okay, yes, before we start putting more water, as an example, off of that asphalt path, the downstream manhole has to be opened and that drainage line has to be continued along the shoulder of Loma Larga to the big pond at Paseo de Corrales. There is a lot of water running in it now off of the existing asphalt. And it just doesn't go anyplace. It fills the pipes and that's where it goes. Okay. No charge. So what we're planning to do is we got to get that connection made before I start putting more water into the roadway. Because the goal is all the water from the shoulders in the village property has to go down the road into those median structures, those vertical pipes, and then down.
Stand up and talk for about. No, that will work. I have a lot of questions, but although the slope at the top of Meadowlark is the steepest, there are other homes, ours as well, where there is a slope. Will there be any kind of retaining wall to hold back the?
We don't think we'll need retaining walls to hold the slopes up, except for about that 200 feet at the very west end. Don't forget, when we put the curb in, it's only raising the road about 6 inches. And if we put the asphalt path in 5
5
feet
feet.
wide, only raise it about another inch. So you're not really cutting that much into the slope. The problem is that even though you're not cutting much, at the west end, it really makes a difference because you can't catch grade.
Will you be addressing any safety issues on the road? Because that was the original intention 20 years ago. Like putting speed bumps back in. I walk up to the trail at Intel every morning and watch cars slalom around the islands and the silly little speed tables.
I know it's going to sound trite, but it's not my job. We're working on getting the shoulders running. I think you might need to talk to the village or Public Works about what they might want to do for various things. To my knowledge, the little medians were put in as a traffic calming device.
But it's not working.
Maybe we need to propose speed cameras,
Yeah,
you know, I mean.
They were not put in the way they were designed, supposed to be those items. They were supposed to direct traffic to slow traffic. You can drive straight down line down that road and never curve around.
Right.
Speed bumps.
You
Bumps did do it.
you said you have other questions, ma'am.
last thing, who will, somebody gonna maintain those islands and weeds that grow in the crusher line? Oh, I know, and I was out there a week ago Sunday and had 3 Corellis police officers come because somebody said some ladies in the middle of the street chopping down tumbleweeds.
Oh,
And I said, could somebody just at least come pick them up? Cause I do this, that was my 3rd time out this year.
Yeah.
And these guys,
Dude, nice job, sure, these guys.
Right.
manage those things.
okay, I'm done.
Yes, that's
Once again, I'm going to say that's not my job.
Okay, Steve Trujillo, Debbie Trujillo, we are at 1516. We are the big slope. I do have quite a few questions and Pam is correct. We've been on this since 2000. The original thing was supposed to be in horse equestrian, which got told no. It's supposed to be traffic calming or traffic control, which has done none. I can't even get out of my driveway many times of the day. So number one, as Linda asked, who will clean those pedestrian trails when there's rain and dirt on them? We do get rain and drainage. That's gonna lead into a bunch of other questions, but who's gonna maintain that?
The
Mr.
Village
Mayor,
Public Works has to maintain.
they will clean those. Okay. All right, let's put that. Next, as I said, and as the Cox have talked about, there's tons of runoff drainage from properties to the north of us that still have not been addressed. And as you said, the slope, you're gonna put maybe one Gabion or what? We did construction, land development, engineering and surveying, and he did roads and maintenance at Los Alamos Labs. One Gabion is not gonna stop this drainage. If you're gonna put the slope right at the where the drainage comes, you need to come and see a rain to see how much dirt goes down from ours to everybody's driveways down the middle of the road.
Right.
So that's an issue.
As I said, we haven't gone into final design. We just know that we probably need to do something to stabilize at those steep slopes. We can't just blend in.
Okay, and again, I asked about traffic studies. There should be something that when there has been accidents or the road is frozen and the police stop the traffic, we have to show our driver's license to show we have access to get on that road. I don't know if that's an option, but it's something that needs to be thought about. And my last one, why on earth is the pedestrian trail going to be on the north side? We have always asked for it to be on the south side. The south is level. The north is not just our lot, not just Linda's. The Coxes also have drainage issues too. Why is it always have to be the north side? The trails run behind Intel on the south side.
Because I have more room to work on the north side.
That does not show on your
The
drawings
south
here.
side.
No, that is not what you show on your right of way drawing.
I have,
That
I
is not what
think,
was proposed on the
about-
other ones.
that's not my drawing, ma'am.
That's showing you that there's more room on the south side than
I
the north
have
side.
22 to 24 feet on the north side. I have 16 on the south. We have gone out and measured it all the way up and down the street. That's why I say the first thing we did was look for those property lines so we could figure out where we had room and where we could go.
Okay, one more thing. Nobody walks on the north side of Meadowlark. Not only because of the steepness, but also because of people's property, people's designs. There's goat heads. The south side every day, bless Linda, I see her every day go there. There's a family of 5 that walk that trail every day. I just don't understand 16 feet to 20 feet and you can't put a 5-foot median
No.
on that asphalt, in the middle of that asphalt.
The south, you mean down the middle of the road?
No, on the south side where you
On the
crush,
south
it's like
side,
your
between the
crusher fine.
asphalt and the right of way. We didn't have enough room to make it work with those 5 wide side
You
streets.
just told me they're 22 feet. You
I have 22 feet to 24 on the north. I have 16 and only 13 on the south where the medians
And
are.
5 still gives you enough to keep them away
No.
from the traffic.
Doesn't give me enough room for people to come out of those 5 access roads.
Well, I disagree and
They
I can
can't
look
see.
at the highway department
You
drawings
can't
to
see.
show you. We can't see coming out of the north side either on some.
But you can see better than you can on the south side.
That doesn't make sense, sir, as an argument.
Doesn't make sense because you have no room.
That's not an
And
argument.
if people want to walk on the south side, on the gravel
That's not
and
gonna
the
get,
crusher stones, crusher fines, they're welcome to continue
so
walking
then
on
we're
the
gonna
south side.
waste the money that the village is getting to put in a pedestrian trail that nobody will use.
I live on the north side.
Somebody else had a question in the back. Go ahead. Please give it a microphone.
So those of you that have lived on the road for a long time know all of this. If there's anybody new, this project, we started messing with this road in 2020, right? No, in the year 2000. In the year 2000, we started this and we've had multiple designs, some of which have gone through, some haven't. The number one concern to begin with, why we all as neighbors got together and started talking about this was because of the traffic going up and down the road, the speeds. And now you're telling me that your design is only has to do with the north and the south side, but the entire village is supposed to be involved in this road, Meadowlark. We were supposed to have something to help slow the traffic because we're getting all this cut through traffic from Rio Rancho. We've known this for years. We've had a task force. We've had so many different things to try and get this road fixed. So great, north and south. What about the middle of the road? What about the control on the speed? And it was also, the other concern was drainage because we had so much flooding and we still get flooding in our yard. I mean, we're down at the bottom and the water comes down and it comes all the way into our yard. We have multiple holding ponds, et cetera, everything we're supposed to have. Hopefully this is going to help that, but what is going to address the initial concern that we had as neighbors to slow traffic coming down that road and make it safer for pedestrians that you're putting the paths in for, and make it safer for equestrians who are riding up and down our road, even though some people don't like to admit they are. We were just talking about somebody who runs their horse up and down the road. So yeah, there's equestrian. Everything Debbie said is absolutely 100% true. And there's concerns that we'd like to see addressed. We had the money at one time, we lost the money. We got the money again, we lost the money. So can we please address the entire road and not just the sides of the road?
Thank you all for doing this. I've lived in Corrales 38 years, so on Meadowlark. And so I've heard all the ins and outs. We'd love to have everything addressed. We'd love not to have a cut through. We know that this money won't do that. If we can just improve the access, which you're suggesting, maybe enforce some ordinances about fence height so it doesn't look so much like an alley. I don't know if that's possible or not. But this would be a major improvement and will help us, those of us who walk on both sides, north or south. That would be excellent. So we thank you.
And I agree with the comments that have been made. This will not do anything regarding traffic. The traffic that currently runs in the asphalt, however many cars there are, or everybody drives, going to stay the exact same as it is now. We're only working in the shoulders.
Hello. So I know we had comments earlier about not being able to close the road during the construction, but is there a way that we could close it to non-local traffic? Right? So I know they do, we've got businesses down by Balloon Park. During Balloon Fiesta, they give them passes and that's how they get in and out so that it's closed to everybody. That's my main concern. How do I get home? And how do I get to the airport and not get stuck for hours and miss my flight, right? So
When we go in to develop traffic control drawings, one of the things we always look at is one of the first things we put up is a sign that says no through traffic. The problem is enforcing that.
Yeah.
In theory, every time someone makes that turn, there should be someone there saying, where are you going? That is cost prohibitive to have. Plus, and I'm talking about backing traffic onto Loma Larga. Imagine that would do, what that would do for everybody turning onto the road. But we can make that a condition of the traffic control that the contractor does. He puts up no through traffic signs. I think they had that when they built the road 5 years ago. And I don't know whether it was or wasn't effective.
Stop sign there.
during construction, they had construction workers there. You'd have to tell them that you live. So they did it before.
Okay.
I've got 3 questions. First question, we live on the north side of the road. We have 2 access points into our property. How tall is the curb? Is it like a standard curb when we go into the city?
It's a standard
It's a
curb.
curb.
At the edge of the asphalt. It's up about 3/4 of an inch. And then it slopes back. And then we'll run into the 5-foot asphalt.
Okay.
So it's only raised up at the asphalt about that much.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say if the curbs were higher, maybe that would dissuade people from You know, if the curbs were like, yeah, for, you know, how they
Well,
speed up and down and pass you, they pass you
Along the
on.
rest of the road, it'll be 6 inches high,
Okay, so it's gonna be like normal curb.
like
height.
a normal curb.
That might help some people, or at least some of the big rigs, when they swerve around. Okay, second question is, again, we have double access there. When the curb stops to enter the access, does it just stop or does it,
Tapers.
it tapers? Okay, it tapers
goes
in,
from
okay.
6 inches high
At the, to,
down to
okay,
about 1 inch.
okay, and then,
Tapers on both sides.
okay, and then third question is, once that 5-foot asphalt pedestrian path is, what's north of the end of the 5-foot at the asphalt? It just kind of,
Whatever your drawing is.
Is
On
it
the
more
north, no,
fine?
on the north side, we're going to blend in wherever we can to the existing driveways.
Okay.
We're trying to do as little as possible to the existing driveways. Even at the north end where we have those steep lots, that 200-foot section is between two driveways.
Will it hook to the metal or the Rio Rancho walking path then on the north side?
There is a trail that goes from the end of Meadowlark. It's a paved trail that runs north. That's where
Right.
this path
The-
will end.
Yeah, Thompson fence line, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, the Thompson fence line. There's a trail just west of it. And this trail, this path will end at the Thompson fence line trail.
So where you have the 5-foot path, then you're gonna have on the other side of the path to say my wall, will there be crusher fine or gravel there?
We're going to blend into the existing driveways. If your driveway is currently
Mine is dirt right now,
gravel, we'll blend into the gravel. If it's dirt, we'll blend into the dirt.
so I need to put a bunch of gravel out there, so
Yes.
they will deliver 2 tons of gravel. to
Yeah.
Put it out. So, you know, one thing, and I don't know if this is really a possibility, if we could maybe put, and I'm serious about this, I'm not kidding about it, put traffic cameras up, cite people, use that money generated then for beautification of Meadowlark and for the maintenance of those medians and stuff. But what does that camera do? Well, yeah, there's a truck there. But I don't, that,
Solar, and it's to collect information on license plates as they go west. to turn it into-
but does it generate tickets?
I don't know if it's for tickets or not. It's yeah.
Can I just ask if you are going to
I'm sorry, I can't deal with a lot of issues that aren't part of the job we're working on, which is only shoulders.
will you be repaving the driveways that were bladed out when this whole project began?
There were a couple of driveways that I believe were either paved or really good material. When we go back in to do the trail on the north side, those driveways will be repaved. I know they were pulled out
Yeah.
when the roadway work was done. I think there were a couple of them up the hill. I think Public Works knows where they are.
I have a my question is, they narrowed the road to keep the semis off the road. And they were supposed to put signs up at Rio Rancho, one down near Loma Larga and Meadowlark. What happened to those signs?
I don't know anything about what signs they were supposed to
No.
put up.
To keep semis off Meadowlark. Yeah, but they weren't supposed, they were supposed to put no semis. Not weight limit. Well, yeah. Well,
Because we did semi.
I don't know
because they
anything
narrow.
about those signs.
They narrow roads.
The road lanes are just about where they were before in width, but the little
they're not.
medians were supposed to, wasn't my design.
Oh, here we go again.
All right,
Couple quick questions. I think I heard you suggest that there's no more line of sight issues on the south side.
yes,
So those are gone away.
because we're not putting the trail on that side.
Okay.
I'm putting what might be called a path, the gravel and the crusher
Okay.
fines.
Right now, people, lots of people will park on, especially on the south side of the road. I'm assuming when the gravel and the crusher fine goes in, there'll be no parking. Is there not supposed to be parking now? I don't know what the regulations are.
There'll be a curb there.
Okay,
Don't forget, there's going to be a 6-inch curb.
okay, okay.
Other
So you'd have to
than
jump the curb
other
if you were
than
gonna
right
park over
at
on the gravel.
Driveway.
Yeah. Does anybody know what the parking regulations are now on? Are there any? Right. A side question. I'm just wondering, are there parking regulations now?
I'm sure. You got on the city website.
Maybe.
But I think that house, so I think they run some kind of business out of there.
The village clerk has lifted up the village code.
Oh, that's too big. I can't read that much.
There's no off-street, like, you can't park on the side of the street on any public road, is my understanding.
Who actually owns the road at point of
The
this?
village,
Is
let,
there
let-
a
let me
highway
go
department
back to the
that-
first two drawings I showed, which was the plats on the north and the plats on the south. That's what people own, north of that straight line and south of that straight line. The village owns the 60 feet in between. It's what we would call a negative survey. We went out to look what you own here and what you own here. So what's in the middle, you don't own. The village does.
We put electric gate up at the top.
There was a thought. You mentioned how long this job has been going on. I started as the village's on-call engineer last century, 1999. And in 2000, there was suggestion of putting up a sign over the road at Rio Rancho border that said, "Welcome to Corrales." And the bottom of the sign was going to be only 10 feet from the asphalt. So you couldn't get a truck under the sign. That was one of the first suggestions 25 years ago.
That was my design, Debbie Scott, right?
Okay.
I got a question for you. We're the second to last house on the north side with a big slope in front of the fence. So you're saying you're gonna cut that slope back 5 feet?
Yeah.
So 5 feet into that slope is gonna leave an embankment of about 4 to 5 feet.
No, I'm sorry, that slope, we took some shots on it. That slope is really about a 1-on-4. So if we go back 4 feet, to 5 feet, we're going to cut about 1.5 feet. And that's why we think we need the median, or we need the gabion or some kind of a device to make sure that slope doesn't keep coming down.
Yeah,
Slope
but-
is your right of way.
You're
Yeah.
right away, and that
And
thing
it's a
drains,
right of way.
drains water when we have heavy rains. You
The
can
water,
see
the
channels
water
coming
would
off
still
that-
keep running down the slope. We're not gonna block the water flow. We're just gonna try to do the
So
best we
what's gonna
can to
keep that
blend it.
dirt on that slope?
Yeah.
Well, because the gabion, if we put gabions in, will be higher than the dirt.
But you're still you're still talking about at least 6 feet high from
No.
the bottom of my fence to the asphalt.
Yes, at the bottom of your fence down to the asphalt, it's about 6 feet. In that 20 some odd feet, I'm only coming back 5.
So it's
Could
gonna
you-
come,
Mel, could you put the cross section for the slope section up? You see the way you see the gabion structure, which is just off the edge of the asphalt? You see the way at the very back of it, it's higher than the dirt?
Yeah,
That
I
keeps-
see that
that
it's
keeps-
higher, but
That
you have,
keeps all the dirt from coming down. The water will still run right down and right over it.
I see that dirt, that slope that you have there, but that's almost a one-to-one slope or something. I mean, it's not a true picture of the slope that you're gonna hold back.
That's why we have to do a design, but certainly that 200 feet to make sure that when we cut back, we're not going to be pulling that whole slope down. That's one of the first things we noticed when we were out there is how steep that is. It really is about, don't, it's about a 1-on-4 slope, which means every 4 feet back, it comes up a foot. It looks like it's a lot more, but it isn't. Because you've got about 24 feet of shoulder and that slope is up. I agree with you.
I would
6 feet.
I can provide you with pictures when they first redid the road of the cut that they put in on that slope that they did not maintain or take care of. So I'd like to have you out there and you show me what you say and we'll get our instruments out and show you
When
what we see.
when the village gets their funding, we get to go ahead to do some specific design to finalize things. We sadly will be out there a lot. Mr. Mayor, you wanted to say something?
So a lot of these designs that you're using for the slopes to vertically stabilize those slopes that you
Yep.
cut into are the same types of designs that we've used up at Skafka to control the flows and to control the slopes. So it's not, this isn't new and it'll work. And what we're working on is the village property. So we're not going to impact your property and we will retain that dirt, that silt, whatever that is there. I don't even know what the quality is. And will allow the drainage to come down the road, which is what it's supposed to do.
So that slope is all your.
So we're going to do with a slope. And as we go along, and I think Mark asked what we're going to put behind, our goal is to put mulch up there to try to do as much as we can to improve the quality of that soil over time. And because we're going to have a lot of that as we work on the ditches along the, anyway. Yes, ma'am.
I still don't understand why the pedestrian trail is gonna be on the north side where there is 17 driveways.
We-
That it has to go through instead of the 5 cul-de-sacs that you're worried about.
So the only answer I can give you is that we were having a very difficult time dealing with the people who lived on the south side. And it was a lot, it was a line of sight issue. It was, no one wanted to provide the line of sight that's required in order to be safe. And so, we went out there and we walked the whole area and decided that probably the best thing to do was to do the simplest thing we could on the south side that didn't require a line of sight. And that's basically the gravel. We needed to put the asphalt trail in because there had been a huge amount of input over the years about this trail. So pedestrian access route, excuse me. And so we did that. Now I'm going to take a break here and pass this to Mr. Curry. He's going to go rehash a little bit of the past history, of which you probably know most, but the part that the village was involved with that lawsuit on the last construction.
So I inform you of this, and many of you are already aware of it, I think, not as an excuse, but as just knowledge that we've had to work with. So in 2019, the village contracted with TLC and BlackRock to build the road. And their price for building the road was $1 million. And connected with that was some state funding and federal funding. The federal funding, we eventually backed out of because there were too many requirements with the feds and too many requirements that would continue to extend the road construction process out. So I arrived in the village in this position, living in the village in 2017, and I came here in 2019. In July of 2019, what we found with the contractor, there was a commingling of the books between TLC and BlackRock, who was a subcontractor of them. The State Highway Department advised us that we should stop construction on the road until such things were ironed out so that monies could flow for the road. We asked him to stop. We told him to stop for 2 weeks in early August of 2019. Then we asked him to stop again around Balloon Fiesta time. They finally finished the road supposedly in early 2020. What we found is that they had not complied with the rules of the contract to buy American and build American in certain areas of the road. They had installed non-American made products in the upper end of the road in the areas of manholes and things like that, which caused some initial problems with the drain that was supposed to run down the middle. So we finished the road. They were not in compliance when they finished. And so they continued to invoice the village. And the final invoice that they sent us was in excess of $1.6 million, or more than 50% of the original contract of the road. And it was not in compliance. We refused to pay them. They sued us after many discussions with the owners of TLC. They sued us, and the lawsuit went into court, and they tried to say that because I didn't sign off on the road, that I was in violation of the contract. And I didn't sign off on the road because it was not in compliance. So we eventually prevailed in the lawsuit. And we ended up, instead of paying the $1.6 million that they wanted to pay, or the $1 million, a little over $1 million, which is the original amount of the contract, we ended up paying just slightly less than $1 million, about $960,000 for the road. But it was a road that was not complete according to the initial contract that we'd signed with it. So that particular delay complicated things as we went back to the legislature to try to get capital funding to add to the construction of the pathways on either side of the road. And so I inform you of this once we got the litigation resolved and we went back to our legislators and to the governor to ask for funding. We ended up getting money. This last legislative session, I guess it was this last legislative session, they came in with a proposal that they were going to fund about $600,000 worth of the road. We got a call, which is also happens toward the end of a legislative session. One of our legislators had $150,000. They didn't know what to spend it on. And we got a call and said, let's spend it on Meadowlark, because it was a project that had been languishing for the 20 years that we were all talking about tonight. So we got the money. We've got the monies now to complete the project, has been stated by Steve tonight. And so that's a brief history, but it goes along with so much of there's so many fingerprints on this project going back to 2020 or beyond. We thought that it would be best for the residents of Meadowlark to come forward with this plan and try to accomplish it with the money that we've gotten from the legislature. As far as some of the questions going forward with traffic calming, the village is always going to be ready to listen to some of those suggestions, because we understand the importance of safety up there and speed up there. We can't isolate the village. We can't close the road. We can't make it a toll road and say, if you don't live in Corrales, you can't come here. But when we get ready to do the actual construction of the road, we will have conversations with the folks that are building it as to the best way, whether, like Steve said, whether we have, flagmen at the end of each road, or we close certain portions of the road, but there will be a big emphasis only to allow access to the residents that live there. Because theoretically, and I say this only theoretically, and is that if we could close the road completely both ways, construction might proceed more quickly, letting only the residents in and out. But we'll have to have that discussion when we get to the point to start building the road. And there'll be more discussion on the road, as Steve mentioned, when we get to the point when we've got the money in hand through the legislative process to start putting the design together. So
Different question than this. Is there still discussions about putting a roundabout at Loma Larga and Meadowlark? No, that's done.
Why?
There are no discussions. Yeah, there are no discussions.
Is that still an option?
I have a question of, when Pam and all of us started, it was supposed to be a bike path, horse path, and pedestrian path. Where is the or the bike path and the horse path?
Bike path and the pedestrian path will be on the PAR, that 5 foot wide.
So that
We'll
is the
put up
pavement.
signs that will say very clearly, it's a standard state sign. Bicyclists yield to pedestrians. And if horses want to, I know they don't like to walk on asphalt, they can walk on the other side of the street where it'll be gravel and stones.
Have you looked at the cost of paving 5 feet on both sides?
No,
Okay. That would solve a lot of problems.
And as far as bikes going downhill, they will take the lane on the downhill side, so.
there's a sign up now that I saw very recently. It says bikers take the full lane. So downhill, there should be, I agree, going down that hill on a bike, if you run into a pedestrian, somebody's gonna get hurt. I know the village put that sign up quite a while ago. I don't know if people actually do what it says, but if they do, they take the full lane downhill. Uphill you go on the PAR. And if you come to pedestrians, you may have to get off your bike and walk.
We own the last vacant lot on the south or the east end. So we would just like to have a driveway there. Since there'll be a curb, when we develop at some point, we don't want to cut through the curb.
Do you have any idea where you might want that driveway?
I'm happy to work with you on that. I just want to make sure there's a note.
Do you have any idea where the house and the garage are going to be?
It doesn't matter.
Well,
I just need to have access to the
problem
lot.
is the answer to your question is, yeah, I give you 200 feet of drop curb. And then wherever you build your driveway, you can get out. But that nullifies the whole goal of putting in the curb and drop curbs for driveways.
If the lot gets sold and the people that, if the lot gets sold and the people that purchased the lot, they would be the ones that would decide where the driveway would be and where the garage would be and where the house would be.
Yes. They would at that point have to go to Public Works and ask for a driveway permit.
Okay.
And at that point, if they wanted it where there's a 6-inch curb, they would have to knock out that curb and put in a 20-foot piece of header curb. So
Why can't I just agree with you about where the driveway would be put now?
That's the thing. We'll stay it out.
Tell me where it is. We'll give you a drop curb.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do that. I can't tell you right now, but yeah.
I'm serious. Pick a spot. We'll give you a drop curb and maybe whoever buys the lot says, all right, that's where I gotta have my driveway.
That's the plan.
How about mailboxes? Do they stay where they are? And garbage cans, where do we put those?
Mailboxes, I thought all were moved already, weren't they?
I moved mine back. When I got my letter in the mail to move all my stuff back, I went out there and I moved it back.
Yeah.
It was pretty.
Don't forget, at least on the south side, we're not gonna be working, really close to those walls. And I think the mailboxes are inside the cul-de-sac.
North side though, they're
On the north
beside
side,
the driveways.
if on the north side, if they are at the driveway, don't forget at your driveway, that elevation is only coming up for small radius. So we don't want to create a sharp edge at the driveway. So we put a little radius in at the end of the concrete. So when you come in on the driveway, you come up gently. But I don't think any of the mailboxes are in the way.
What about?
I know, I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, so the mail person theoretically should drive up each driveway, stick the mail in, back out, because now
What do they do now?
they drive on the dirt on the
They
side.
drive all the way around the upstairs.
Yeah,
Then they may try to drive on the PAR, the pedestrian access route, which is one of the reasons we don't make that a skimpy design. We know that at some point people may be driving on it. So we build that little path, 5 foot wide, to a standard village road detail.
Okay. Let's talk about the north and the south side of the road.
North side, where we're putting the path in. If someone drives on, if someone comes up that road in a golf cart, if the mail truck decides he's got a mailbox here and the next mailbox is right there, and he is gonna drive on that path, he won't damage it.
That's what he just
Well,
said.
that's not his fault.
Years ago, when this was a concern that Meadowlark would not be turned into a 3 or 4 lane road, I remember this was, and I don't know if you guys can find this or not. I've tried to go back and find it. But they designated that Meadowlark would never be more than a 2 lane road. This was put into some code somewhere in the village. And this has been since 2000. I'm guessing it probably was in 2015 or 18, something like that. Now, that side that you just said, you could be able to drive a car up and down. That means, could they?
Post office does it already.
The post office does it already. You can drive a golf cart up and down there, correct?
If someone decides they want to, that road at that asphalt design will hold up a cart.
We
It will
don't
hold
want,
a car.
we don't want that to be able to be turned into the future into a 3rd lane on Meadowlark.
It's this.
On the north side?
Asphalt with 5 feet wide.
What's to prevent them in the future turning that into another lane? And the curb
You
gets
mean
knocked
on
out?
the other side?
Talking about the north.
North of the curb?
Yeah.
What's fault?
All right. I just want to make sure that that's
I-
clear.
I couldn't, I don't have an answer for that question. If you had an old, my brother had a little Triumph TR4, which was probably exactly 5 feet wide, but I don't think they make the little cars like that. Why would you drive on it if you could drive on the road?
Because they do that right now. They drive in the dirt to get to the corner to make a turn. So
That's why we're putting the curb in, so you can't do that. The only place you can access the pathway, the pedestrian access route is at the driveway. Other than that, there's a 6-inch curb. You want to jump it? I can't tell you people aren't going to try to jump the curb and get hung up. I don't know. People do strange things. You may go out there one day, there'll be a tow truck trying to pull somebody off the edge of the curb. Because I thought I could do it.
Okay, my question is, are they putting back all the signs they took out?
I don't know of signs that were taken out
Okay,
that weren't put back.
they took out some of the speed signs. They took out, we had signs that said for the trash, $500 fine if you throw trash. What happened to those signs?
I don't know what signs were taken out.
I'm just
Perhaps-
telling you.
Perhaps the village can go back into Google Earth Pro and they can do a historical look and drive up the road and see what signs were missing. I don't know. But I'm getting a sore throat. You are welcome if you have continuous questions. I think, Melanie, I think when the letter went out, there was information on how to contact the village clerk so that everything will run officially through the village. If she gets questions on things that aren't real easy, she will forward things on to me. I will go back to her and then they will come back to you. I thank you for coming. I'm sorry I don't have answers for all your questions. I'm sorry this isn't the job you kind of were hoping for, but this is the job we got.
Sign the sheet for you.